Hey, my name's Taryn with The Remote Yogi, and today I'm going to quickly take you through my process for making a bloating tonic. So this is something I drink every day, not just when I'm bloating. It's great for detoxing. It's got amazing ingredients like ginger, turmeric, apple cider vinegar, things to really help gut health and keep us healthy and alive. So I drink this every morning, but it's also really good when you're just feeling bloated and out of balance. So when I am on my period and I've got a lot of bloating happening, I'll drink this so I can still wear my crop tops. And it's also something that I used to give my brides when I would do wedding planning to really make sure they looked their best after all the morning champagne toasts. So let's dive on in. Really simple. All you need today is a small or medium saucepan, 1 lemon, some fresh ginger, either fresh turmeric or you can use powdered. I'm all out of fresh turmeric today. I use a tiny bit of cayenne pepper, but you can skip this if you don't want any spice. Some apple cider vinegar, preferably with the mother in it, which just means it has all the active enzymes to make sure it's actually cleansing through the gut. And if you are into honey, I would do a little bit of honey. If you're a vegan and don't use honey, then maybe try agave nectar or something, maple syrup, to calm down how acidic it's going to be. So you can skip the honey if you don't want any added sugar, but it's going to be very tart. So I use the honey just to kind of mild things down. Okay, great. So my first step is to fill my saucepan with some water. I usually use about 4 to 5 cups of water. You can always make this a stronger solution and then add water to it later, especially if you're storing it for the week. I tend to make mine a little bit stronger so it doesn't take up much space in my fridge. So I store a really strong tonic mixture and I water it down each morning when I go to drink it. So just really quick, I'm gonna cut off all the rind off my lemon. And once I have all the lemons peeled, I'll go ahead and dump the lemons into my saucepan. Next, I'll chop pieces of ginger. So I want to go with very thin slices to get as much of the ginger into the water mixture as I can. And this one's a little bit thinner, so I might use maybe a full inch, 3/4 of an inch. I'm just going to start slicing off. Sometimes I get really thick ginger and I'll use like 1/2 inch, just kind of depends. Now, if you're using fresh turmeric, I would suggest the same thing, maybe using a small piece of turmeric. Turmeric roots don't usually come much bigger than 1 inch or 1.5 inches, and they're so thin. Use the whole thing. Perfect. So now I've got my ginger all sliced up. I'll go ahead and also toss this into my water mixture along with the fresh turmeric if we're using fresh turmeric. If we're not using fresh turmeric, this is when I'll go ahead and add in the powdered turmeric. So if I'm making a stronger solution, I might just throw in about a teaspoon or so, maybe more. I just eyeball it. So just throw in a good amount in there. And then I will set this on the stove to boil. So while I have that on the stove while it starts to boil, I might mix some of my other ingredients together. I usually use something that allows me to pour, so there's a little lip here, so I can pour it into a big glass bottle when I'm all done. So really simple, I'm just going to squeeze the rest of the lemon juice into here. So I'm staying at an Airbnb right now that does not have a juicer, but if you have a juicer at home, this should be a little bit easier than squeezing it all out. Awesome. Try to avoid the seeds in there so you don't drink them unexpectedly in the morning. Awesome. So I've got about 1/4 of a cup of lemon juice in here-ish. So if you don't have fresh lemons and you can only use lemon juice at the store, I had problem finding lemons in some countries I was in, so I'd use lemon juice. That works too. You don't get the rinds boiled in, but that's okay. And then I'm going to take my apple cider vinegar and maybe a 1/4 cup to maybe 1/3 of a cup. Get all that goodness. Perfect. I'll toss that in. And then the honey is really up to you, however much you want. I usually do about 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons. I also try to get local honey, so I know it's going to help with any kind of allergies I have in the area when I go with something local. So read up on honey. try to eat as vegan as I can, and I know a lot of people have problems with honey. However, I have bee farmers in the family, and I know a lot of them are doing things in a way to try to protect bees. A lot of the bee farmers I know locally will go and rescue bees, swarms from people's homes. Instead of coming in and killing them off with pesticides, they'll take those bees in and bring them back to their farm. So they're trying to preserve the bees. So I'm not super against honey. I'm super against big honey companies. But I think if you do your research, you can find honey that's being made and used to help repopulate the bees, which is what we want. So I use about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons depending on my mood, and I'll just toss this in here. Awesome. And I'll let this sit while I've got everything else over there boiling. Once I get it to a boil, I will drop it to simmer and let it simmer for anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how much time I have. The longer I let it simmer, the more I can really pull out the goodness of the lemon and the ginger, and if you're using fresh turmeric. So we want to let it boil for a good amount of time. All right, so I've let the boiled mixture cool down just a little bit. I still want it warm enough to make sure I melt the honey that I have at the bottom of here, so I don't have it too cool. And then I'll go ahead and grab, as I'm knocking things over, I'll go ahead and grab my glass bottle. So if you don't have a glass bottle at home, you can mix it in some kind of glass bowl and then pour it into like plastic water bottles. That's what I used to do when I was traveling all the time, so that works as well. So I will just grab my glass jar, and I usually do this over the sink. I'm gonna give you a big warning. Turmeric stains everything. It stains everything yellow, so especially if you have linoleum countertops and they're not like granite or something, be very, very careful with the turmeric, because I've stained so many kitchens using turmeric, so watch for that. Okay, so I'm going to grab my mixture here, and I usually just use the pot lid to strain it, but you can grab an actual strainer if you want. And I will just pour some of the mixture in with the honey and apple cider vinegar. It won't all fit in there, but I just pour a tiny bit in, and then of course stir it up really well just to make sure the honey melts completely. I'll stir this up. And this is usually when I add a dash of the cayenne pepper. So if you wanted to use the cayenne pepper, now is the time to add a tiny bit. I really just do a dash. You don't want a lot, but I like a tiny bit of kick. It's nice in the throat in the morning. And then I will take this, and again, over the sink so we don't stain anything, I'll pour this into the glass jar. Beautiful. And then because I've got such a small pitcher to pour, I just do this a few times where I strain this out into something that makes it easier to pour into the glass bottle. Now, if you can pour straight from the pot into the bottle, more power to you. I'm not that talented, so I use the little pitcher to do it. And then I'll just let this cool until it's about room temperature, and then I'll throw it in the fridge or have a little cup of it right now. And then again, each morning I'll just pour some of this into a teacup. I don't have very much, or not like a full coffee cup size, teacup size. And with a mixture like this, I'll sometimes water it down a little bit. So I'll do about 2/3 of the mixture and a little bit of water each morning, and it's good to go. I usually warm it up in the microwave for about a minute, minute and a half if it's really cold from the fridge. But you could drink it cold. I just don't really like it like that. So if it's room temperature or warm, it's gonna be better on helping the bloating. So that's it, really easy recipe. Go over to the blog, I'll write it all down for you, and make sure to either subscribe here on YouTube or subscribe to the blog to get even more resources from me on living a healthier, happier life wherever you are in the world. See you next time.